This is a loaded episode on MOPS and AI with Jessica Kao, who describes her journey to MOPS leadership, what she's seeing in the industry, and how MOPS is bearing the torch for marketing to adopt AI. She describes three critical skills for MOPS leaders, including Geek speak to C-suite. We discuss AI adoption in companies, advice for scrappy startups, and close out with GTM Engineering and GTM Innovation Center. Welcome to the AI for Marketing Show. I'm your host, Angelina, with many years of experience marketing in the tech industry. This show is for marketers to keep up with the pace of AI. We host conversations with innovative leaders on the leading edge, experimenting and navigating in the world of AI for marketing. And I'm truly excited to have Jessica with us today, who, when I first met at a conference, was who I wished was my MOPS leader. So I have been following her along, and Jessica is fluent in both tech and business, and who I get the feeling has really elevated marketing operations to like leadership status. So without further ado, I'd love for Jessica to introduce herself to the viewers and get into the conversation.
Awesome. I'm so excited to be here. Yeah, I've been doing marketing operations for more than 15 years at various size companies, mostly recently at large global SaaS companies, cybersecurity companies at Cloudflare and F5, leading large teams, owning the technology stack, and leading digital transformations. Most recently, I've just joined Adobe as their director of B2B go-to-market digital transformation advisor, where basically I spend the time focused on thought leadership around B2B and trends, especially around the future of AI. So really excited to be here.
Very happy to have you here. And that sounds like a dream role. So, congratulations. That's awesome. And maybe you can even talk to us a little bit about your journey, what got you here and what's most exciting about AI and its possibilities with marketing.
Yeah, no, like I think being in marketing operations and being an operator and being from like starting at the very ground level, like building emails and uploading lists, I think there's nothing more important than really having experienced everything. And I think that really makes you a better leader for the marketing operations organization. And so, climbing up through the ranks as a manager and managing a team that does those things like campaign operations. I'm a marketing technology architect by training, so I can architect all of the systems and think about how the data flows and how data passes from one system to the other. I think those are really important skills to have as you climb your way up.
Yeah.
And then, my whole thing is really marketing operations over the last decade is, I always call it like it's half marketing, half technology. We are, I borrow a lot from the IT team, and especially now with AI, building the relationships with IT and with the CIO is
Mhm.
incredibly important in terms of the skill sets that you need, especially because in technology, you can't really do AI without them. I mean, before we used to own marketing technology all by ourselves and we can kind of just implement the technology and it's
Yeah.
more isolated and standalone. But especially with AI, you need to have more of that cross-functional, cross-functional partnerships and things like that. And so I think having that very technical background and rising up the ranks and becoming a leader makes you an even stronger leader because then you can translate the business right from the technical side to the business side, and it's actually you become the glue to a lot of the strategic initiatives in your organization. I think that's the secret sauce in terms of, like you talked about, like, hey, the more fluent we are in business and tech, I think the more successful and the higher up that you can go because you can talk, to the C level, you can talk the language of the board, you can talk the language of the business leaders, and that's where impact is happening. And because of always doing, and basically I've always done that, and
Yeah.
I've always shared what I've learned. I'm super transparent. I've shared what I've learned my entire journey. When I learn something new, I love to share it with the community. And I think that naturally builds the thought leadership. And that's how I ended up in the role that I am, which is really sharing thought leadership with the whole community.
Totally. Absolutely agree with you. In fact, I read somewhere yesterday, where they were talking about building like really large revenue model companies on very lean teams. And the DNA, right, of the folks that they're looking for in these teams are really very versatile generalists now, right? So absolutely hear you there, and I've seen your journey, and absolutely, impressed and inspired by you. So maybe Jessica, if you want, we can take it from the top. You're now at Adobe, an innovating, leading edge company in its own right. So share with us a little bit about, what you're seeing Adobe as maybe even facilitating in the world of AI for marketing, or even how it's transforming itself, right? Like with AI.
Yeah, and so if you think about like the things, the products that I've used as a customer, the Adobe products that I've used as a customer, and all of the marketing technology that it provides to its marketers, we're infusing AI into all of the products. Just like a lot of companies and a lot of vendors that are producing the products, it's really doing an AI first, obviously an AI first approach is almost like an agentic AI. And so if you think about the things that I'm seeing across the board from just the industry, as us as marketing operations, as marketers as well, it's basically like having, to really understand like AI and AI literacy, right? Like what's the difference between AI, Gen AI, agentic AI, right? And then because you have to understand what the new tools are before we can actually go and use them, right? It's like, hey, we're used to having a wrench, we're used to having a hammer, and now we're given like these new tools that we've never seen before. So I think
Mhm.
it's first, it's really understanding what they are, right? And more important than ever as marketers is to keeping up with the changes. And like I feel like changes happen so fast. And like before, it's like, hey, when you have time, I'm going to scroll LinkedIn and read a few posts. Now it's more like, hey, you almost have to have like a dedicated plan, right? Like listening to your show to really like keep up with the changes because there are changes that are happening like on a week by week basis, right?
Totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally, totally. Um, so do we want to like bring it into your world of marketing operations, right?
Yeah.
And maybe like and I think like at least what I've always felt marketing operations had the responsibility for was to be that technical glue, right? Like for making marketing run. And in fact, right now, I feel marketing operations, or MOPS as it's called affectionately, is bearing the torch, right? Like for marketing to adopt AI. So you're at the forefront, right? Like when we say, oh, marketing is like, becoming AI enabled or adopting AI and all that stuff, right? Like it's starting in marketing with marketing ops. So if you want to share with us a little bit about like the trends that you're seeing, the growth areas and the opportunities you're seeing, especially as it relates to marketing operations and marketing impact, right? Like with AI, that would be great, like for us to hear from you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was just, thinking and talking with some of the other like some of the CMOs that have been my mentors for a while, which is, this is such an opportunity for MOPS to show their strategic muscle even more, right?
Mm,
It's an opportunity. It's like the door has swung wide open for MOPS to step up to the plate and lead these initiatives because we are in the best position to do that. Why? Because, like I said, AI is very technical. So, who are the most technical people in marketing? Is the MOPS team. We are half technology, we are half marketing. More now than ever, we have to be able to translate the business use cases or the business outcomes that we're trying to drive and translate it to technical needs. It's even more
mm,
technical, and this is new. Right? This isn't like, hey, we have a use case that we want to run more webinars. It's we are fundamentally having the opportunity to kind of blow up our whole GTM approach and actually rethink processes,
mhm,
rethink use cases that weren't even possible before. I mean, think about the how we have structured our marketing and just decisions have all been based on because a lot of things are resource constrained, right? So if you think about ABM, and I think about, oh, we have to choose a finite list of ABM accounts,
yeah,
right? And we go back and forth and
yeah,
back and forth. I mean,
yeah,
we've been there. We've all been there,
yeah.
right? But why do we have to do that? Hey, we want to build bespoke experiences for select accounts. Why do they have to be select? Because there is a cost and a resource constraint to make those. But with AI, that completely can change our thinking, right? Because AI unlocks the ability to be able to like, why are we constrained to 10 accounts
Yeah,
or
yeah,
20,
yeah.
20 accounts, right?
Yeah.
You completely rethink that, right? So I used to own the marketing analytics team at a couple companies ago. And a lot of times we would spend time focusing on, okay, what new dashboards were we going to build? Because
Mm.
we are constrained again by resources. Like we have to really focus on these questions, because we can only build, 3 new dashboards a quarter and it takes time to move data along.
Yeah,
But what happens with AI where, you can actually talk to your data? I mean, right? Like,
yeah,
it's going to take a
yeah,
couple of
yeah,
steps to set up, but
yeah.
what if we can just, every stakeholder can just ask the data, right? What do we spend a lot of time doing? We spend a lot of time building data models. It's very structured, right? And you have to build it in a certain way to answer certain questions. And if you have new questions that might not, right? Sometimes like, hey, how come I can't see that column in
Yeah.
that data? It's because on the back end, getting technical, the table joins, but like what you can is attached is
Yeah,
different.
yeah, yeah,
But with AI, you have an opportunity where everything's unstructured,
yeah. It's
right?
a paradigm shift.
Exactly. It's a paradigm shift.
Yeah,
And MOPS is it's an opportunity, but we have to also lean in. And this is where it goes into like the new skill sets, right? We have to lean in to actually help define the use cases because this is like uncharted territory. It's kind of like, you got dropped into a new planet and you're
yeah,
like, where do we go?
yeah,
Like, do we go up the thing that looks like, a flat plane, or do we go up the thing that looks like a mountain, or we do go down the canyon?
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Where MOPS has to actually play a great like it's almost like the opportunities. Like if you weren't doing it before, and I've been talking about like, hey, we got to define use cases and MOPS, and before it was like, yeah, we can get by without doing it.
yeah,
Now it's like, no, you in MOPS, we have to lead with, hey, what use cases are we going to go do? Otherwise, we're just going to all stand around staring at our map or GPS, like not knowing where to go and spinning in circles, right? And I think that's where, from a skill set perspective, we can set the North Star, and sometimes that can be scary because, like, the world's your oyster. This is so brand new. Where do we go? Do we go right or do we go left?
yeah.
Everything's a possibility, but we have to set a direction, and it's our opportunity to set a direction of, okay, where do we want to go with AI in terms of what capabilities do we unlock? And I think that dovetails next into the skill sets that are needed from a MOPS perspective that are net new, right? Like we always talk about people, processes, and technology, like the 3 legs of the stool, but because transformation, right now, everything is digital, everything, which means it's
Yeah,
technology based,
yeah.
right? And we're always like, when are you not transforming? And that's where I believe the fourth leg of the stool that should be permanent is change management. And so
Mm,
we have to get really, really good at change management, especially as a leader in marketing operations. Change management is really 75% of my job,
mm,
right? And so getting really, really good at change management, understanding change management and how to lead through change. I think that is a skill set that, it's whether you're a leader today or not, or want to be a future leader, or even if you're like, an individual contributor,
yeah.
banging out, writing emails or like programming emails. Change management, I think, is an important skill set to have throughout the entire life cycle of your career as in marketing
Yeah.
operations.
Totally. So as you were, describing that situation that you've just dropped on a new planet and you're kind of figuring out where to go, I love that, right? And in my head, I was also thinking, wow, that planet is full of candies now. So it's like Candyland and new planet together, right? So it's like, what do I first pick up and try? And so the feeling that I am getting, in the last 1 or 2 years is that we were dropped in the planet. We started like trying, experimenting, pilots, test cases, right? Like use cases, and all that stuff was like happening in a frenzy. And now, are you seeing that it's getting a little more structured? Like, what are you seeing across, different companies in terms of AI adoption, right? Like, are they starting with still like, hey, we have a mandate that we need to essentially implement AI, and that's why they're going? Are they starting from outcomes and workflows that need the AI help for scaling? Are you seeing also the proliferation of newer, I guess, titles being introduced, right? Like in organizations to facilitate the adoption of AI. So So talk to us a little bit more about, what that world looks like. Like, is it changing? Is it getting more organized? Or are we still in the very initial, phases where everybody's an early adopter pretty much right now?
I mean, I think you're going to see run the gamut, right? I see and hear majority of the time basically like, okay, there's a mandate, we have to infuse AI, right? And then I think that's when you start seeing the spectrum of, where people are on their journey. Because, there isn't anyone saying like, hey, we're not gonna, well, maybe there, but I haven't run into anyone say, hey, we're not gonna use AI. There's a mandate that comes in with AI. And I think varying degrees of success depending on and then what, right? And
Yeah.
having the necessary structure. I think, what I see is like when there is more structure, surprise, surprise, when there is more structure and thought and planning,
Yeah.
there is, and the support structure needed to adopt I think that's where I see more of the success. Where I see,
Mhm.
in speaking to, I was at a CMO retreat and they're like, hey, we just said, hey, there's a mandate. Go try a bunch of tools and figure out which ones that work. And then, like lots of candies, go try a bunch of the candies and figure out which candy and then go do the thing. That's where things don't work because we're talking about the tool and not the what's the business problem that we're trying to solve for with outcomes.
Mhm.
And so I think I get the flip side of that is I see more success from the entities and from the companies are building the support structure to support, the adoption
I
and
see.
bringing in of AI, right? Which
Right.
is, it's kind of like the typical new technology adoption curve, right? It's like
Yeah.
everyone's excited, so you have everyone trying to find their own tool, right?
Mhm.
Decentralized, everyone's trying to do their own thing, everyone's trying to be scrappy, which is great because it's the learning perspective,
Yeah.
right? And then you get back to reining it in to like, okay, well, how does that scale? How does that work with our existing processes? And it's a little bit of, things that, in MOPS we're super used to doing, which is let's go build the plane while it's flying, right?
Yeah.
The companies don't have processes to onboard AI, so you're kind of like different parts of the company, right?
Mhm.
You're also working and partnering with security and with privacy and with legal. A lot of
Totally.
times, like the policies aren't written for, for the process. And then you also have, you know, people, the products, the AI products the vendors that you're buying things from, they're evolving so quickly, so everyone's just kind of evolving at the
Yeah.
same time. And I think the companies that have, and again, this is where like the alignment is super important, where I think in marketing operations, where we're in lockstep with the CIO, and the
Mhm.
CTO, and in that office, and having like really joint partnerships with that is those are the support structure that when in place, I think really when it's a company-wide, initiative. And there's a very, there's it's led from the company and the support structure is there to help foster this initiative.
Um, Great insights, as always, Jessica. Another thought, right, that comes to me is that most of the AI solutions that are being talked about now are grounded in data, right? And they're usually grounded in a company's own data, right? Which brings with it privacy concerns. So, in terms of, because I remember, right, like being on the marketing side, bringing in something like a new shiny toy, you want to bring it in, you're completely sold. You have to work through MOPS, with the tech leaders, with the IT side of the house, and essentially pass through all of those, regulations like compliance, and you have to pass through those gates, right, to get the technology rolled out. So I'm curious about, like, with AI having such deep roots in needing to access your data and there are privacy concerns. Um, is the internal climate in companies also changing, as in they're making it easier now to adopt? Are they relaxing a bit? Are they getting more strict? Um, or is there also an environment of let's just try this out first in a sandbox, and then let's then figure out the rest later, right? Like because of the whole FOMO thing that's also real right now. So I'm just curious to see like what you're seeing. Again, it's probably a range. In a bigger established company, it's probably more stringent. Smaller startups are probably taking more risk. But what are you seeing as far as adoption, for these technologies goes?
I think again, you're going to see the gamut, but what I think, I mean, I think people realize like the FOMO, like you're going to be left behind if you don't figure this out. And I think it's not necessarily so like relaxing, right? The data policies, or it's more like figuring out how to work with it,
Mm.
right? It's like you have a completely new, it's like you have a new pet and it's an alien pet. Right? It's a pet that's never, it's like Lilo and Stitch. Right? I mean, you can tell I have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, so I
Yeah.
forget which one's Lilo and which one's Stitch.
Yeah,
Stitch is the alien, right? I think
right.
Stitch is the alien.
Another analogy that somebody used yesterday is like having an AI is like having a baby tiger cub. It's so cute, but it may grow up and eat you up. Right?
Right? Right? Oh, I
Right.
like that. I like that. But at least with the tiger cub, you know like what a tiger is, and you know what he does. This, I think it's Stitch,
Yeah.
right? It's an alien a pet, right? And you're learning about it. And so it's like you have to adapt your house to like how do you work with it, right? And figuring out, you still don't want Stitch to destroy your house, and you don't want to eat everything in your refrigerator, but it's new, and so you
Yeah.
have to figure out how to work with it, and it's a new entity. And I think that's what it is, right? It's
Yeah.
not like you're not sacrificing, oh, my privacy policies or anything like that. You're really just trying to figure out how to work with it in this new world,
Yeah.
and building like the processes specifically for AI that are just frankly net new for all of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. And kind of going back to what you had initially said, that marketing ops, this is your time to shine, pretty much, right? Like the door is open and you can actually be at the forefront, right? So stitching that together with the conversation about skill set, and you talked about change management for sure. But other than that, like for marketing ops folks who might be tuning in, right, and interested to learn and hear from you on this. Are there some other skills that you are looking at that are really critical that marketing ops folks need to, sit up and listen and maybe think about getting those skills, right? So, want to share some?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so change management, and these are things if you followed me along for a while, these are things that I think are super important for marketing ops, and more so important now, especially with AI, right? Which is that geek speak to C-suite translation.
Love that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've been talking about it for the past 2 years about how to translate Geek Speak to C-suite. Also, that's going from here to up here, but also across, right? Like, how do you translate the needs of marketers and sales to more technical folks, especially now that we're interacting more with IT, with the data team, with the technical folks, because the
Yeah.
we're going to get more involved in the data, especially if we're trying to feed it into AI and all of our different tools. So it's a translation across this way. And
Yeah.
the third big bucket of skill sets that I think is really important, aside from change management, is also around road mapping. Road
Mm.
mapping and being a product marketer, no, product management. Being a product manager of Martech. A lot of
I
times, in
see.
a lot of large companies, you have a product manager of like your CRM, or sorry, a product manager of your marketing automation. You have a product manager of, right? You have the product managers that kind
Yeah.
of own like Marketo or own, a webinar platform, right? But especially you need product manager basically you need to have the skill set to roadmap
Yeah.
capabilities.
Yeah.
You need
I
to
can see
understand what
that.
a capability is. You need to be able to roadmap the capabilities. And road mapping is the what are we doing and why are we doing it?
And when, right? Yeah.
Right. And then from a broad level, the when, and then not to be confused with a project plan. Right?
Mm.
A project plan is from our roadmap. A project plan is then your Gantt chart of like, how do we do it and
Mm.
when do we do it, right? Like,
I
what
see.
feature are we
Okay.
using?
Great.
But
Great.
right, from marketing ops perspective, especially the marketing ops leaders are being, are typically asked, like, what's your vision?
Yeah.
What's your 1, 2, 3 year roadmap? And right now, even with AI, what's your quarterly vision, your 6 month
Mm.
vision of what are we going to do and why with AI? Or what are we
Yeah.
doing with why with any of our technology? But but it's capabilities because it's not and we fall it's a pitfall is falling into features, right? Oh, we're going to launch this feature from
Yeah.
this product that is going to auto write 50 variations of email. That's a feature.
Yeah.
What are the capabilities that we're going to unlock and why? Because like you said, there's candy everywhere.
Yes.
Which piece of candy are we going to go after on
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
alien
Yeah.
planet with our alien pet?
Yeah. Beautiful. I love it, right? Like, so change management, geek speak to C-suite, just love that. And also like being able to roadmap, right? And own it as a product manager, like three key skills, right? That folks should be thinking about. Um, Another thing that I'm curious to get your thoughts on, Jessica, is that, again, in my time as marketing leader, and I call it like pre-AI, post-AI sort of a thing, right? So in the pre-AI world, the budgets, right? We used to think of budgets in terms of headcount, in terms of programs and tech, right? Like that is what a marketing leader's world of budget cut, budget slices used to look like. Um, and typically, roughly, I would say it could be something around like 40-40-20, right? 40% headcount, 40% programs, and maybe like 20% on tech. And what we've recently been seeing a lot is that a lot of the headcount budgets are shifting to tech, right? So, which means, Jessica, like you and leaders like you, right, like we're sitting in marketing ops, are probably um, also feeling the pressure a little bit, right? That you need to kind of like get the technology that's going to solve all of their world hunger and all of their problems, right? So, so, so in the past, like I remember, like it used to be that we talked to marketing ops leaders to kind of help us pick, certain technologies and all, but now I think it's very critical conversations because the big size of the budget is going and it's actually writing a CMO's outcomes, right?
Yes.
Like there's a direct line now from the technology to CMO's outcomes. So share with us a little bit of like how you're seeing the changing winds there in
Mhm.
terms of, marketing ops leaders, right? Like are you getting pulled in more into the strategy conversation so you have a better understanding, like you said, about, the outcomes they're trying to drive and the road mapping that you can essentially then support them with? Or is it becoming like, oh my God, there's candy, like drop, 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 right? Like just go pick something and start experimenting and put some task forces. So is it chaotic like that, or is it like more strategic, right? Like working more closely than ever with the CMOs and marketing leaders?
I mean, I think the CMOs that really understand the value of marketing operations are going to view them as strategic, right? And it's actually goes the other way, which is like, hey, if you're in marketing operations and you're not being pulled in those strategic conversations, how can you elevate yourself to educate them? It's like, hey, this is the capability of what marketing ops can do. It actually can impact. It has a more direct line to outcomes. So I think the conversation actually can go both ways. The second thing is budgeting was always if I had a second tier of skill sets that
Yeah.
are super important is owning the budget. Like I was always fortunate that I could own like I was owning like multi-million dollar budgets, and it was a separate skill set that I taught my team members of like there's an art. There is an absolute art to knowing how to do budget and just because ours is a little different than as a marketer, right? Because your programmatic spend where annual spend, so
True.
there's a whole thing. We can go into a whole different conversation around budgeting.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the skill set around Geek Speak to C-suite and know understand being able to talk business outcomes. Because if you own a budget of technology, and it's very just like, hey, I spend, let's say, make $100,000 on an email system, right? The immediate thing is, well, how am I supposed to explain? Like, we're not doing a cost per email. That's not how you do value. So it's
Yeah.
really understanding, like, how do I get value out of the budget, right? And it ties into
Yeah.
business outcomes and pipeline and revenue generated, and that's where you bring back, right, the two most important key skill sets, which is going to be around Geek Speak to C-suite and road mapping.
Yeah.
Because the reason why you pick your roadmap and the reason why you're doing it, hopefully, is because like, hey, this is going to unlock this capability, which is going to lead to every capability that I launch is like, hey, it's going to lead to, $20 million more in pipeline this quarter, or like,
Yeah.
right, like understanding how to do that part and then actually put something out there that's more forward thinking. And it's a different way of thinking about budgets in the age of AI because things are changing so quickly. So usually when we do budgets, as I'm sure as a leader, I would come to you and say, "Hey, I want to budget, $1 million next
Mhm.
year for this, and this tool. Let's put it into the FY26 budget." And basically, right, like part of doing budgeting is that if you are measured on like, I need to spend all my money, right? I get
Right.
dinged if I don't spend all
Mhm.
my money,
Mhm.
right? So with AI, and this is, in interviewing and talking to a lot of CIO, CTO, and CMO thought leaders who are really pushing the edge, is taking a different, more of a VC milestone budgeting approach. And this is
Mhm.
very, very like unconventional, right?
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
like, I think this is where we need to go. So hopefully all your listeners can lead this too, use this to lead, right?
Yeah.
Which is milestone. It's like I don't even know if a company that I want to buy next year is even invented yet
Yeah.
because AI is changing so quickly. So instead, earmarking, hey, we're going to do $1.5 million of investment in AI tech for next year. It's going to be in the budget. We all agree, let's set it aside. And then then it's like doing milestones. Like, okay, we're gonna do this and we're gonna pilot, right?
Mhm.
In FY26, right? So it's like you've set aside the money, but it's a completely different shift of like use it or lose it and you're penalized. It's more like, yes, we're gonna use it. And I need to have forethought on how I'm gonna use it. But the exact vendor that I'm gonna pick to use it
Right,
for
right,
all this
right.
experimentation people are it's changing so quickly that how would I possibly, know what to use it for like, and we're talking about like the smaller, like the newer stuff, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, from Adobe, right? Like these are big, these
yeah,
things, when you're using them, they're like multi-year things. I'm talking about like the experimentation
yeah,
AI type things, like the smaller things of like, hey, we're gonna try this, we're gonna
yeah.
try this out, we're gonna try this like, data append tool with AI, we're gonna try,
Mhm.
those kinds of things. But it's like having a bucket, you talk about experimentation, but having a bucket of money for experimentation and you're not beholden to, hey, you're going to be penalized if you don't. I mean, yeah, yes, we're going to spend it, but like, do I know the exact name of the vendor and what product
Yeah,
I'm going to buy a year ahead of time?
yeah.
Things are changing too quickly,
Very interesting.
right?
Very interesting. Because I'm kind of thinking, okay, let's pick any, pocket of marketing, like SDRs, for example, right? There's a lot of AI activity happening in order to transform that area. And the conversation then around budget is more, the outcome, which is that we want to transform SDRs or make or bring in or introduce efficiency, right? Like in the system of SDRs, it's not about reduction in headcount of SDRs. It's not about, increasing the meeting, whatever cadence of SDRs. It's really about like transformation, right, in SDRs world. And then that budget could be used for clay, it could be used for qualified, it could be used for one mind, right? Like, I mean, they're all viable solutions out there, and then you can rapidly experiment and see what works best for you. So I love that thinking, and I'm actually going to highlight that, the VC kind of thinking, right? Like for budgets, I think that's beautiful, versus getting locked in and then you're, stuck in an annual contract or an annual agreement, and then you can't really like swap out, right? So, love that. I also want to just actually, one thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately is the bigger organizations, right? Like have more marketing budgets and they probably have more budgets to experiment and spend on AI solutions, like whether it's Jasper or Writer, right? Like as you're experimenting, um, the scrappy AI first companies that actually want to hire maybe like only a few marketing people and they want to stand up an entire GTM engine, right? Like, which is based on AI technology, right? Like, are you seeing anything very interesting pop up over there in terms of adoption, right? Like, of tools and technology for AI? Like, any names or things come to mind as a lot of like our, I think people who are tuning in are also folks who are in that space of AI startup land and they want to learn, right? Like what else is out there which can really get me up and going faster with AI technology. So anything that you're seeing, which is phenomenal, that AI startups essentially are leveraging and getting amazing performance from already.
I mean, I think being in tools, right? Um, it's always the shiny, it's like shiny new object syndrome, right? I mean, I hear like I personally, I lead teams or I did lead teams, and then now I'm just doing thought leadership now. So I personally have not had my hands on it, but I think watching and just doing a lot bunch. I mean, I hear Clay a lot in the RevOps community.
Yeah.
I hear there's just so many that like and I think there's a couple of things. I think one, the marketing, the community is going to be your go-to place to go figure out who all the
Mm.
tools are.
Yeah.
Two, I see a lot of like the AI companies that are startups that are super scrappy with like small budgets, experimenting, they've become their own product
Huh.
managers, right? Like you're building like your own like AI first tech stack, and you have all these people that are showcasing it on LinkedIn and how they've connected like in daisy chain like five different tools together, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And those are great for the people who are, you know, and it still takes a bit of technical savviness to it, the time, and also essentially you're building your own product,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, you're just stringing together a capability, right? Your product flow is what you're building, which is awesome. And so I think those people that are super curious and have that self-initiative, they're the people that are going to do really, really well. It changes so fast. I think the other thing that I am seeing is that we still have day jobs as marketers.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see that it's always like I think the large percentage, right? The large percentage of the time, it's like, yes, we have to carve out time to learn. And I think it's great that there are communities out there. Like I know that who was it? I think like OpenAI there's like a bunch of the vendors also produce like, hey, here are basics, or here's the courses, or here you get started. I mean, even my mom's group, I am
Yeah.
I am in the moms in tech group, so but like our monthly Zoom calls is like AI, like let's go build our own GPT, and like that's
Beautiful.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it helps that I live in the Bay Area and AI is like everywhere. Like
Everywhere, right?
you can't get away from it here, right? So
Yeah.
we live in our own little bubble, and I'm super happy in my bubble.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it runs the gamut. It is so new, and I love it's a great time to be in MOPS and a marketer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I'm on that side of the camp with you, right? Like, this is super exciting. You started out our conversation painting that picture, right? Like, where we used to have to say, oh, we have to do ABM. We're going to have like a list of named accounts and we can go after them, right? Like, why? Because there was a constraint. And that's beautiful about our world, that the constraint is lifted, right? That we can actually do scale, at scale marketing, and we can do more effective marketing. So I'm with you. I'm like super excited about like what's possible. But then also as leaders, I think we also have the responsibility of sort of like like not falling for that for the shiny toy syndrome, right? And essentially having a very thoughtful, strategic narrative around why, right? And what is this going to solve for? So loved it, and time absolutely flies, Jessica. Like, when you're learning a lot, and it's been fabulous to hear your thoughts on this. One last thing that I would love for you to maybe like share for us is go-to-market engineering, right? Like, this is something that is like become a buzzword. I believe there's even a GTM engineering school that people are taking certifications from now. There are GTM engineer jobs, right? So, how do you define GTM engineers, and what are some of the skills that folks need if they want to go toward that path?
I mean, I think GTM engineering is yes, I definitely see that as well. And I think it's the next evolution of what marketing ops is, or right. And I would actually take it one step further in that GTM engineering, right? Like having done digital transformation at multiple companies, I had my day job, which is to keep the trains running and then do digital transformation and innovate. It's the same skill set that is needed for both, but they're two kind of different remits, but it's always like,
Same person.
same person doing it. And especially with the amount of change and the amount of innovation and just that we have to do, I think the GTM engineering it has to be a separate person, similar profile skill
Hmm.
set, maybe more technical. I think it comes back to the marketing technology architect, or like that GTM systems architecture, and even
Yeah.
more technical person, more technical, that leans kind of more technical to that enterprise architecture, but that also isn't saddled with the day-to-day, like, let's keep the trains running,
Mm.
right? Got to keep the emails going, got to keep the
Yeah, yeah,
webinars
yeah.
flowing, right? Because you start pulling apart in terms of where your focus is if it's all one person. So it's like having that a GTM Engineering Center of Excellence, Digital Transformation Center of Excellence,
Yeah.
that they are like in lockstep with our business stakeholders in marketing and sales, but then also in lockstep with the CIO and CTO office.
Which is so talking about like broadening their purview from just marketing, right? GTM, usually when we think of GTM, we think about like sales, marketing, customer success, product, right? Like all of these functions. So is also the vision of GTM engineers sort of like being the glue, right? Like between the systems that are being used in sales. You know how we started talking about RevOps, right? And we started talking about RevOps as being like sales ops and marketing ops, instead of it being siloed, now you have rev ops, right? Is GTM engineering also kind of like going in that direction of like there are these GTM engineers who really understand the GTM operating system, right? And they're going to build the GTM operating system of the company because they really understand and they're glued in to the GTM strategy. Is that like also where it's moving towards, or is it pretty nebulous at this point?
I think in an ideal sense of where I see, like if I had my crystal ball, I think in an ideal world, marketing, sales, customer, they would be three equal parts to a triangle, right? And I see and they would sit and they would have to understand, right, the go-to-market in an ideal world, but
Yeah.
they would support, the go-to-market motion at a company. And in the ideal world, it would be like it would work perfectly. But you know how you've been in marketing for a really long time. There's enough work. There's enough work in marketing engineering as part of the go-to-market engineering for us, for the systems for us to be a significant part of the three-legged triangle of go-to-market for
Yeah.
sure. But I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
it's so nascent.
definitely. And this area is like moving and morphing so quickly that really like we're all sort of like keeping up and learning, right? Like, what is this really? I met somebody recently also who had a very interesting title called GTM. No, it was Gen AI Evangelist. And this is at a big company, really big company. And
Yes.
I'm just, it's very interesting, right? So essentially, they're putting somebody giving them a full-time role that
Yep.
go out and see, right? Like what all is
Yeah.
out there, and then sort of bring it in and map it, right? Like to the company's workflows and to the company's
And
needs.
that goes to change management, right? It's like
Yeah.
part of like my like ideal proposal for an operating model for is a GTM innovation center, and part of it includes a transformation office,
Yeah.
right? Part of it includes like a learning and development, right? Like how do you culturally infuse, right? Training and enablement is more
Yeah.
than it could be its own office, in an ideal world,
Extremely
right?
right.
So those are all, and those could be like partly outsourced, but someone in-house has to go drive those
Yeah.
initiatives. So, I view AI, right? AI is here to enhance the humans, and you can view it as an opportunity, and you can get on the bus and take it as
Mhm.
an opportunity.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you on that, and that's the purpose that I'm having this show as well, so that let's all just talk about and educate ourselves and not have that anxiety and fear, right? Like about how AI is going to come for our jobs. I think it's going to transform our job content, right? And we have an opportunity to figure out how, right, and play a role in that. So, with that, Jessica, I think we'll draw this to a close. But thank you so much for taking the time out. I'm always watching your journey, and cheering you on. So, thank you again, and would love to have you back on the show. But thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me.